No one plans to wreck their life in their 20s, but tons of people do it anyways. It's not through a single event or some dramatic breakdown either. Rather, it's a slow, subtle slide into mediocrity and unfulfillment. Our 20s are supposed to be this decade where we're full of life and this sense of adventure, and we're discovering ourselves and having really the time of our lives. Yet we've somehow become a society that's more anxious, depressed, and directionless than ever before. And if you're wondering where it all went wrong, well, I think this 8-step guide pretty much sums it up. And that's why in this video, I'm sharing 8 bulletproof ways to absolutely tank your 20s so you know what not to do if you actually want to create a meaningful life. And so the first step is to let lifestyle creep absolutely take over your life. And really, this is probably the most common mistake that I see a lot of people make. It's a mistake I've made at different points in my 20s as well. And it kind of makes sense. I mean, you graduate, you get your first job, you start getting your first serious paychecks, and it's sometimes difficult to know what to do with this new income. But for a lot of people, they start by upgrading every single aspect of their life. The latest iPhone model you probably don't need. Daily Uber Eats orders for the sake of convenience. And Friday nights out with friends that cost more than your emergency fund. This is how people end up making 70 grand a year and spending 72 grand a year and going into debt every single year throughout their 20s. And you know, I get it. Life has gotten expensive. We're dealing with inflation. The cost of living does keep going up. But you have to ask yourself, if you're spending money on purchases to try and keep up with appearances or because it's what society says you should do, are you really spending your money on things that matter? Lifestyle creep is honestly a silent killer of freedom. It's how people get trapped in careers they hate, tied to cities they can't afford, all for the illusion of progress. If you want to keep your 20s feeling stressed and chaotic, definitely spend money for the sake of appearances. All right, and the second step, this one is for the emotionally unavailable crowd, and that's to give up on love and to settle for shallowness. And this one is really a pressing issue, I think, because we are honestly living in a time where hookup culture and dating apps and just the dating market in general is a bit of a swamp. It's very difficult to navigate. It's very unfulfilling for a lot of people. And there are also lots of people, both men and women, who are just checking out of dating entirely right now. But checking out of the dating market entirely, or just focusing on your career and focusing on yourself and not paying attention to other people around you, is a recipe for disaster. People tell themselves that love is a scam. They convince themselves that no one is worth trusting. They hide behind sarcasm, oh, it's just a hookup rationality, and all of the endless situationships that are conjured from the depths of Hinge. This might work for a period of time, but eventually you'll find that your life feels hollow and it's missing something. And that something is another person and deep connections. And honestly, this was me for most of my 20s. I have to say, I really haven't dated much. I've only fallen in love with one person. And now that we don't talk anymore, life feels very empty. It feels very lonely, paralyzingly so. And again, I think a lot of this has to do with the habits and situationships and things we get ourselves involved in our early 20s, mid 20s, and so on. Honestly, my advice here is to ditch the dating apps and hookup culture. Try meeting people in person, spend time with your family and friends, spend time focusing on deep connections around you, and also spend time trying to become a person who would be a perfect partner for someone else, because as you do that, hopefully that person will come into your life. All right, guys, and the third step, if you want to absolutely tank your 20s, is to stop playing. And really ask yourself here, when is the last time you did something just for the sake of it or for fun, or just to try something new and random? Most people stop doing this around the age of 23. That's when being serious kicks in. You graduate, you get a job, and now you have to be a big boy. Suddenly, hobbies become a waste of time unless they earn money. You stop experimenting, you stop exploring, and you stop being curious. You stop playing. But honestly, trying new things and experimenting and having fun with your life is where a lot of actual self-discovery happens. It's where you find out new creative outlets. It's where you learn more about yourself. It's where you discover new hobbies or interests that you might not have otherwise had. This is really one of the reasons I'm a huge fan of just booking one-way flights to random destinations. I try to travel to new cities. I try to say yes to as many things as possible within reason. And I think this has really helped me learn a lot about myself and also have a more enjoyable life throughout my 20s. But you don't have to necessarily do this through travel. You could start playing sports again. You could pick up a hobby you used to have. You could just start reading instead of doom scrolling on TikTok to expand the knowledge and information you're consuming on a daily basis. If you want to tank your 20s, do the opposite. Go to the same bars with the same people, do the same thing every single weekend, scroll endlessly on social media, and then wonder why nothing ever changes. All right, guys, fourth step for how you can absolutely destroy your 20s. This one is a massive one, and it's very insidious because a lot of people don't realize it's happening, but that's to basically set limiting beliefs and kind of frame your worldview around these beliefs. People in their 20s say things like, oh, I absolutely need this job, or starting a business is too risky, or I can't move abroad because I don't speak that language. Or they just say, I'm not even good at this thing they've never tried, and then they kind of decide they're not good at it, despite the fact they've never tried it before. All of these are just limiting beliefs that kind of solidify your worldview and your actual view of yourself. And over time, this is how people trick themselves or force themselves into not taking action. Now, again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having a 9-to-5 job or following certain societal norms. A lot of this stuff is routine and a lot of this is healthy. But these limiting beliefs are how people settle for a job they hate. They grind out the corporate ladder, hoping for a 2% raise a year and maybe a little bit more vacation time without stopping to think, hey, maybe I should go work somewhere where I'm more valued. Maybe I should start my own business. Maybe I can move to a different country with different opportunities. Again, it's all about limiting beliefs and how you frame your worldview. Now, the fifth way you can start destroying your 20s, and really any decade for that matter, but especially your 20s, is to just give up on fitness and let it become a distant memory. Now, this one is tough. I totally get that life gets crazy, it gets hectic. Some people get sick or they get injured or they work 80 hours a week and the last thing they want to do on a Friday night is go to the gym and go on a run or go lift weights or things like that. But really, one of the fastest ways to just decrease your overall quality of life, your thinking, your productivity, your relationships, your mood, your energy, everything about yourself is to let your fitness fall off. Your body is the engine for everything you do, your work, your relationships, all of your ideas. And if you let this engine rust and break down, it's incredibly difficult to repair it to the same state after just a few years. Now, based on your genetics and your metabolism, some people get away with letting go of fitness much longer. I know people in their 20s who don't really exercise, they eat whatever they want, they're totally fine, and then it's only in their 30s, maybe even late 30s, that they run into serious issues. On the flip side, some people start having trouble in their teens or early 20s, so again, it's a bit unfair that way because genetics does play a role, but the bottom line is you have to prioritize your fitness. At the very least, this could mean walking every day and trying to get your steps in. It means drinking water instead of soda. Maybe you learn to drink coffee without putting cream and sugar in it, or you start limiting that as well. Little things that can stack up over time. All right, guys, the next step, and this one is also a little bit tricky because a lot of people I don't think realize they're doing it, but it's essentially to accumulate a lot of small vices. You know, one vape hit won't hurt. An hour of TikTok doom scrolling each night probably won't hurt either. Binging a couple of beers on the weekend over and over again probably doesn't matter that much. Yet people do these behaviors again and again and again, and eventually it becomes a part of normal life and a part of the established routine. And really, unless you develop some major vice, like you gamble away all of your money or you get addicted to very hardcore drugs, there's probably not one vice that's going to absolutely derail your life. But that's why this one is sneaky, because people will quietly collect 4, 5, 6 bad habits they know deep down they probably shouldn't be engaging, but because they kind of trivialize them in their brain and they say, oh, it's not that bad, my friends do it too, I only do it on the weekend, I only do it when I'm drinking, they normalize it and it becomes a part of who they are and how they operate. Again, I've had periods of my 20s where I do this too, and it's really not until you shake it off for a couple of weeks or months and you stop engaging in these behaviors that you can take a step back and realize, hey, maybe this isn't something I want as a part of my identity and my behavior. All right, guys, the next way you can absolutely tank your 20s is to kind of just lose any sense of spirituality or faith. And let me explain, I'm not about to start preaching here, but I do think this one is important. You know, I don't think people in their 20s necessarily have to believe in God. That's not something I think is absolutely necessary to have a high quality of life. But I do think you need to believe in something. Now, honestly, it's kind of strange these days, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people in the past and even nowadays, but young people these days, there's a bit of a almost rise in this happiness of not believing in anything. I'm an atheist, I'm not spiritual, I don't believe in any of that stuff. I just believe in science. You've probably heard something like that. Or maybe you've said something like that yourself. And really, I think this is a pretty absolutist way to view the world, and I think it does have some risks that you might not have thought of before. Really, people need something that grounds them and brings a sense of peace and clarity when chaos inevitably finds them. because chaos finds everyone one day, and it often arrives unannounced and unplanned for. And again, it doesn't have to be a religion. It could be spending time in nature. It could be angel numbers. It could be your star signs. It could just be a sense of faith that things are going to work out if you put your best foot forward and you stay honest. Again, it doesn't really matter, but I think knowing what you can believe in and what you can have faith in and what helps calm you down when the world around you is going crazy, as it inevitably does sometimes, is a very good thing to have on your side. And it helps you kind of stay on the right path in your 20s. All right, guys, and the final step for making sure your 20s are miserable and unfulfilling is to never test your own limits. This one is simple. Never do anything that scares you or forces you to grow or challenges you. Just stay inside your box and never get out of it because it's scary and you might fail. Don't launch that one side business you've been thinking about. Don't ask that person out. Don't ever move cities. Stay right where it's safe and comfortable and build your whole life around avoiding uncertainty. Then, once you've spent a decade living below your potential, say things like, not everyone is meant for greatness. I think it's important, especially in your 20s when you typically have more energy and more time, and you can be a little bit more selfish, to test yourself, to set goals, and to try and accomplish those goals. Well, guys, that does it for 8 different ways you can absolutely derail your 20s if that's your goal. You know, I'm turning 29 this year. I've done a lot of thinking over the last few years about the stuff I've enjoyed in my 20s, the experiences and moments I really have disliked, the mistakes I've made, the lessons I've learned, and all of that jazz. And really, if there's one thing I've realized, it's that you often don't really destroy your life or make a bunch of bad decisions in one fell swoop. It's rather by making lots of little compromises over time. When we're inauthentic to ourselves and follow the norm for the sake of following the norm, this is how we end up in trouble and full of resentment. But you know what? The flip side of this is actually awesome news because it means we're in control and we can actually build a very meaningful life that's full of purpose and happiness in our 20s by making small, healthy choices every single day. Some of these choices probably won't feel easy at first, but they're still choices that are within our control, which is empowering because it means we're ultimately in charge of our own destiny. Ultimately, you don't need to follow the blueprint everyone else is using. In fact, you can tear it up and make your own because it's a lot more fun that way anyway. Anyways, guys, I know this is a bit of a different video. I'm having fun with this channel. I'm kind of trying out some new ideas. I'm writing over on Substack as well now about life and productivity and building wealth. So if you guys want to check me out on Substack or here on YouTube, I'll be covering this kind of content moving forwards. Again, this is just based on some of the stuff I've thought about a lot over the last few years. I've had a really random decade, well, almost decade in my 20s. I kind of did the normal path. I went to school, I got a degree, I got an office job, until one day I kind of realized I was hating my life. I hated where I was living, I hated what I was doing. So I made some changes. I quit my job, started my own business, started traveling the world, and the last few years have honestly been insane. I found a lot of financial success and career-oriented success in my 20s. I got to travel to 6 continents and dozens of cities, and in many ways, my life has been sort of an Instagram highlight reel when you look at it from this outside perspective. And in reality, a ton of my 20s I've loved. It's been such a fun period of life. I'm honestly really blessed and really happy with it, but I've made tons of mistakes too. I've had really bad relationships. I've really struggled with the dating market. I've not always been the best friend or the best family member because I'm more distant or I'm not as engaged as I should be. So again, it's been a very interesting decade-ish, to say the least. These are just some of my reflections and things that I've done wrong or I've seen other people do wrong, and then how you might be able to avoid the same mistakes. So hopefully this video resonates with you and helps you out. That does it for this one. And if you have a comment or suggestion for something people should not do in their 20s if they don't want to tank their life, I'd love to hear from you in the comments as well. That does it for this one, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.